All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. So I have William Clemente on here. We're lucky enough to get William on the channel. I've been jumping in some of the spaces with William on Twitter, and and obviously seeing he's a great following a lot of his insights on Bitcoin. So, dude, thanks for hopping on, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Dallas. I think, if we hadn't had the Twitter spaces going, then we never would have met. So,
Yeah, man. Exactly. Things are meant to be. I mean, dude, so we're coming off, yesterday, right? I mean, which was a super eventful, sort of cap on Bitcoin 2021. And obviously, like, I think the first thing probably to jump into, which would be kind of cool, would be the El Salvador news, with the president pushing legislation to help make Bitcoin an accepted legal tender there, and and hopefully them, I think, holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. What are your thoughts after having a little time to digest on that?
yeah, so I kind of have twofold to say. First of all, it's obviously great. Like, this is the next step for Bitcoin getting entrenched into the global monetary system. We're going now from corporates to countries, which is amazing. The other part of me is saying, perhaps which Bitcoiners aren't going to care about this, but people from the outside are. All the allegations about corruption around the president. There's been a lot of bad news around him, at least lately. So I think perhaps that serves as another vector for FUD. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
think as about both sides of it. So that's the way I see it. But overall, obviously, this is just the first domino to fall. And I have heard rumors about other South American countries that are supposedly following suit in the next month or so. We'll see how
Really?
true those rumors are.
Yeah. I guess we'll keep on rumors for now. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's always hard to tell, right? I mean, the FUD, you've been in the space long enough and seen it all. I mean, the FUD has just been crazy, right? Where it all just piles on, and it's so hard to know, right? I mean, you have a guy like him who, in my experience, like I've seen him talk to a couple people that I think are, actually pretty like respectable people in politics in the US. And like, I always thought he seemed like a pretty cool guy. And kind of anytime you see somebody come in that is sort of a maverick, maybe that's not, so much of like the typical like system guy that like, the whole existing system's hoping wins. There's just endless FUD about the guy. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I guess we'll see. But I think it's super cool nonetheless. I mean, it's obviously a smaller country, but I mean, big enough that it's significant. It's funny how the bar keeps raising, right? I mean, like so long ago, it was like, if only corporations will put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Then it happens. Everyone's like, yeah, but how many corporations? Or then like, if only a country would do it, and then they do it. And then it all just becomes like normal for people. It's a
Yes.
bummer.
I think it moves so fast that
Yeah.
you tend to not really even process it as it's happening. It feels like yesterday Michael Saylor put out the tweet that MicroStrategy had taken their original $425 million position, and back in what it was mid-September or something like that, when we were at 11,000.
Wow.
I mean, just thinking about then to now, so much has happened, but it feels like it was just yesterday. So, one thing you touched on about how small they are, I read something this morning that their GDP is $25 billion.
Yeah.
So I think, part of this is the incentive to kind of draw in new capital to their country. So, not only are they going to benefit from, if they take a position on their balance sheet, the appreciation of Bitcoin in price terms, but also if they can kind of become a safe haven for Bitcoin, then it'll draw in a lot of that intellectual and economic capital to increase their GDP, grow their economy, things like that. So I think they're looking at it from that angle as well. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good way that the president could kind of present it to, which I don't think that he's going to have an issue passing that bill, but if he did, he could just bring up that argument as well. I think 25 billion is like 1%. I think that's what the president had put out in a tweet last night. 1% of Bitcoin's market cap right now.
Yeah.
So if yeah, that would be huge for that country if they could even get $5 billion more in capital into their country. That's a substantial amount for them. So I
100%.
think that's one way they're definitely approaching it. And I think when you think about the sovereign individual, I don't know if you've read that book, but you're talking
Yeah.
about, how everything becomes decentralized and the collapse of nation states and stuff. And one of the things they talk about is these tax safe havens where capital, when it no longer, when you don't need to be in New York to run a business and pay for some really expensive office, you can have people distributed over the whole world. You can just meet on Zoom, and it feels like you and I are like in a room
Yeah.
together. And so I think you're starting to see the game theory play out where this country is becoming a Bitcoin safe haven, and Bitcoiners will flock there. And then there'll be another country that comes along and says, oh, well, I see how that worked out for them. And then when you get to the end of it, when you get to the end of the domino, whatever you want to call it, spiral, then the countries are no longer saying, oh, if I adopt this early on, I could benefit from it. Now they're saying, if I don't adopt this, then I'm going to start losing capital out of my country. And so I think that's going to be more so the frame of thinking for larger nations. But I think for now, you're starting to see these first movers being countries that are like, look, we've been oppressed by the central banks and the legacy financial system for so long. We're not gonna benefit or reach any kind of benefit from the current system. So let's adopt this new one. Let's become early adopters of this one, and we'll be the ones that benefit the most on the other side. So
yeah. That was one of the interesting things I think you and another guy brought up yesterday in the space that we were in on Twitter was just the way it's shaking out, and it almost has to be this way where it is kind of bottom up, because the countries that are sort of quote unquote like at the top in terms of just GDP and weight to throw around and militarily, they have the most to lose by at least the current people who are benefiting off the system of Bitcoin really progressing where we all think it's going to go. And so in some ways it should kind of smooth out the playing field a little bit, because these countries that jump on early, and then like you said, at some point we flip over that middle ground, and then it's not only like what a maverick the country's going out and doing this. It's like you're crazy not to do this, because the next 5 to 10 years are going to be pretty rough if your country isn't doing this like everyone else. So it's going to be a bumpy ride until then. But people, I think, are oftentimes so caught up in the day to day that that they're missing macro what's going on.
Yeah, and I think there's this effect where the countries that have been kind of oppressed by the central banks the most are going to be the ones that benefit the most when we go to the other side of this thing, because of the hardships that they've dealt with because of the legacy system. Therefore, they're the first ones looking to get out, and therefore will be the first ones to adopt Bitcoin, while the ones that benefited the most in the old system will be the last ones to move into the new system. So I think you get this really interesting, transition of spending power throughout the world, where now different places have economic throughput that they can transfer to their people through education, where I'm sure there's a lot of really smart people in third world countries, but they just don't have the resources. They're just worried about getting their next meal. They're not even thinking about education, because their conditions are so bad that they're just trying to figure out how to eat. So it's like, when you can empower those countries, because I think a lot of people talk about, oh, well, you're saying Bitcoin's going to empower people around the world, but people in Africa can't buy Bitcoin because they don't have a phone. And I think that's a very valid argument. But the other thing I say to that is, like, if the country that they're in adopts Bitcoin, their government adopts Bitcoin, goes on a Bitcoin standard, then the infrastructure that's built around them is going to grow 10, 100x. And then they'll have the opportunities to, kind of do or become whatever they want to be. But I think that's super bullish for humanity, seeing how I think it's starting to play out, where you see on the corporate level too, MicroStrategy moving first. It's a pretty small name. And I'm sure there's a bunch of small family offices that have taken positions. So I like, it's this transition of the early adopters, the movers, the people that are open-minded, independent thinkers. They're going to be the ones that are benefiting the most from this.
Yeah, dude. And while you said that, I looked it up, just curious, was, I think, according at least what Google says, like 70% of people in the world do have phones. So obviously that's, still 30 who don't, but there's, billions and billions of people who are in countries that, just happen to be where you're born. And, you just have decades and decades of corruption where these people are just printing money like crazy. I mean, I had a friend of mine, she lived in Turkey, or she lives in Turkey, and the president was being pressed. They were like, hey man, the lira is losing a lot of value against the dollar. And he's like, what's the problem? Are you paid in lira? Or are you paid in dollars? And they're like, what? You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of these people around the world, even the countries you mentioned where most people don't have a phone, right? I mean, what we've seen is people do kind of just make that leap where they're not going to progress the same way, right? They're not going to get like telephone poles and wires in the same way. They'll just jump straight to phones off a satellite. And so it's really not that far away for most of those people. But at the end of the day, they are just inevitably stuck in a situation that doesn't really offer mobility if your money is just being debased at, decent single digit to double digit percentages per year. And you have no way to tap out of that for most people. So that's the big thing, I think. And then obviously like the L2s, I mean, that was the biggest problem I think with Bitcoin that people viewed a while back was like the transaction fees. But now you've got, I mean, so many apps like Strike and Cash App and Square. I mean, there's so many of them that I don't know if you think the same way, but I think listen to Michael Saylor talk a lot about that's what people think is going to be kind of the L2 that handles, the transaction fees, right? That's going to be sort of your checking account where you won't keep all your money, but that's where you do most of your transactions, and the fees will be, the cost of sending a transaction, no different than like a text message.
Yeah, I think, in the future, people will be using Lightning. They don't even know that they're using Lightning, and they'll probably never use the base layer of Bitcoin that you and I are using when we're sending funds to our hardware wallets. So
yeah,
I think that, it's going to be similar to like when you use a phone. You don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes when you're using the phone. You just care about, how easy is it for you on the surface. And so I think for people to make the argument that the average person isn't going to understand how to use Bitcoin, it's like it's just such a silly argument because the UI around it will get better, and you won't even know that you're using Bitcoin or the Lightning Network. So it's not about that.
Exactly.
I just think it's a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you one thing. I meant to ask last night, but internet connection failed on me. I wasn't able to get the question in on that space. But so one of the things, right? I mean, I like you, right? I'm super bullish on Bitcoin, right? I mean, in terms of my portfolio, it's more than 50%. But one of the things that I always gauge, and I get it, like listening to the conferences and some of the people, like I like, people even like Max Kaiser, right? I mean, he is all in Bitcoin. Everything else is a shitcoin in his opinion. I think there's a lot of people like him. How do you think about that? First, I guess, like, do you hold like anything non-Bitcoin? And, and then I want to ask you a little bit about just like, I think an effective way to communicate, because one of the things that we started to wrap two questions in that we started to get to yesterday was like, why are people kind of in our generation or, even younger, people are so obsessed with like Doge and these things that they can get big gains on. And I've got my thoughts on it, but I guess the first part would be, do you hold anything besides Bitcoin?
Yeah, so for the first question, I don't hold anything but Bitcoin. I have, I don't know, like 95% of my net worth in Bitcoin, which of course I'm super young, so it's like I could take risk like that. I don't think people, who have like a family and shit like that they should take.
Yeah, if you're 60, you should mortgage a house and go 95 in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I have a little bit of an advantage there in terms of how much risk I can take and be okay with it. But yeah, I don't hold any of the other coins, and I don't know if that's what you're alluding at, or just like stocks and stuff. So I mean, I guess for the answer for both of those things would be that they're both going to get repriced in Bitcoin. I think some of the other like crypto tokens, of course, everyone in the Bitcoin community calls them shitcoins. I think there's in 2017. It was all scams. I think now you have some like the stuff that's getting put out is legitimate for the most part. And these are real like teams of developers trying to solve problems. The question is, to me, are they going to have monetary premium throughout hyper Bitcoinization? And the answer for that for me is no, because you're measuring everything in Bitcoin. So if we're going through this monetary transition and Bitcoin becomes the dominant form of money, then you're going to reprice everything else in Bitcoin terms. So therefore, I mean, regardless of if you think whatever token has any kind of utility, just it's going to get repriced in like, I don't get the people that say, I like Bitcoin, but here's my altcoin. Because it's like, well, if you really understood what Bitcoin is, your altcoin is going to get repriced in Bitcoin terms. So why wouldn't you just hold the Bitcoin? So that's the way I look at it with the altcoins. In terms of equities, I think after gold, I think Bitcoin goes after the fixed income market. And Bitcoin kind of becomes the new discount rate that investors are using to value assets. And if that happens, the fixed income rate is 1.5%, 1.6%. If you're using either like borrowing and lending rates on Bitcoin, then you're looking at a discount rate of like 15%, 10-15% right now, which is nuts. Like if you understand how the discount rates affect the valuation of equities, I mean, you're talking about like a crazy crash in the stock market. And even if it's not the peer-to-peer lending rate, I think what a lot of people have been theorizing what the discount rate will be is just the pure spending power appreciation of Bitcoin to the 200% CAGR. I think it imagine repricing everything with the 200% discount rate. I mean, no matter how you want to slice it, everything once Bitcoin reaches the threshold of taking over the fixed income market, it just becomes like, if you think of a black hole, that's the event horizon. That's when everything, all the monetary premium of everything gets sucked into Bitcoin, because everything is based off of these discount rates and the cost of capital. That's at the core of the financial system. So if
what
that
market cap do you think that is? I mean, I know you mentioned gold prior, which is like 10 trillion roughly. Do you think it's kind of around after that point?
I think when you get around 25 trillion, I think it's because 10 trillion is going to put us at about 500K BTC. And then, double that, 20 is going to put us around around 20. Yeah. Around $1 million. So I think at that point, Bitcoin becomes like 20-30% of the monetary premium in the world. So I would suspect somewhere around there, but I think you're right. Once it passes gold, that's when it's I personally think it's beyond the point of no return, but I think the rest of the world will kind of view it as beyond the point of no return once it passes up gold's market cap. And then between then and that threshold that whatever 20-25 trillion, I think that's when then the fixed income market is going to say, okay, so this is how this whole thing is going to unravel, and then it'll go from there. But I see, the fixed income, that whole thing, because in my opinion, that's way more important than Bitcoin going after gold. I think that's when you really start to see that big transition. And my bad, I forgot the second. What was the second question?
I forgot as well, man. I was enjoying that.
I was rambling.
No, dude, that's great, man. Super insightful. No, I think I get what you're saying, and I actually really like the way your logic on seeing it, right? That things are priced in Bitcoin. I think my thoughts just on what we were getting into last night, which was why is people your age group, my age group, and I'm even seeing like parents of friends of mine had posted about Doge and things like that. And I think the reality is one, they don't understand stuff yet, and two, when people don't have a ton of money, they're not, if they have even $1,000 to start investing, a lot of people go like, man, if I'm going to make, what I mean? If I'll double this, like, that's cool, but it's $2,000. Right. And so they're chasing, like you said, they're going to YOLO in, they're chasing these flips. And I get that, right? Because when you don't have money, goal number one is get money. And then once you have it, goal number two would be preserve money and grow it. And so your risk allocation changes. My only point with that was, I think a lot of people that I've encountered in the Bitcoin community, everything, like you said, is they're just like shitcoin this, shitcoin that. And it's like, I mean, you catch more flies with honey. And I think there's a better way of communicating that with people, is just explaining what these coins are, right? And understand, I think, for people that it's like, if you want to play that game, you're gambling and you are taking a risk that you may never catch Bitcoin at the price it was. But I think that, like, if people understood, like, if you're going to play in that game with some other coins, the goal should be to acquire more Bitcoin. Like, the people I know who are the smartest, that have the most capital in crypto, their goal in doing anything, any sort of trading, any activity, is to acquire more Bitcoin. And I would bet the same, it's probably the same for some of the people.
Yeah, first of all, sorry if you hear the dogs
No,
barking. If
you're
it's
good.
really bad, just let me know and we can re-record it because they're like going. I think the Amazon guys here or something, and they go crazy.
No, I can't even
Um,
hear it. Don't worry. You're good.
oh, okay. Yes. So I think what you kind of unpacked there about people YOLOing into the shitcoins, I think that's indirectly a result of the monetary system we have, the
Yeah.
monetary policy where people over time are incentivized to spend, and they're looking for the next big thing, the next get rich quick scheme, because there isn't any incentive to store your value over time and kind of build this foundation for yourself.
Hmm.
So I think that's where a lot of like the behavioral where the thinking goes into people, YOLOing into the shitcoins. I think a lot of Bitcoiners, they see Bitcoin as something that's almost definite. And so therefore, they don't care about gambling and possibly getting 6% more Bitcoin on BlockFi. I think for them, it's like, this is something that's definite. I'm not going to screw this up. I'm just going to buy Bitcoin and sit on my hands because I don't want to lose this opportunity by trying to get a little more by trading around.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hold it. And I think, that's great. That's the, mindset of the majority of the people. But I do agree with you, there, for the people that bash, traders or, people who look into the different projects, I think it does come off bad, but from their perspective, it's probably been like they've been fighting against these shitcoins for years.
Yeah.
And so for them, it's probably like, this is the 5 millionth time that I've had to
I've had
talk
to
to
tell
somebody
you
about
that Cum Rocket is not the one. Yeah.
it. Yeah. So at that point, they're probably just like, have fun staying poor, dude. Like,
Yeah.
fuck off.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
exactly. Yeah, no, but I think for the people who want to play with like a small part of their portfolio in that world, I mean, just like you, right? You're trading still, right? So even with a small percentage of your portfolio, you are taking the risk of I may have less Bitcoin if this doesn't go my way. But yeah, I think the people that are buying into like, dude, this is a better Bitcoin, dude. Like it's just it's not like there's one Bitcoin for that reason, and people don't quite understand all the different trade-offs that come with it. I mean, obviously, like for me personally, I think there's some really interesting aspects of DeFi, right? Because in some ways, when you have, depending on tokenomics, you have, total value locked, you have money that's, passing through that token, you have whatever buybacks and burns that kind of resemble like traditional stocks. Like you have things that you can evaluate almost like a company. And so there's something there that's interesting. And like, I've been lucky enough to buy certain things that are pretty decent sized projects now that luckily enabled me to get more Bitcoin. So I was on the right side of those. But again, like for every story like that, there's 1,000 people who buy Bark token and then they get burned and they leave crypto for 2 years and they come back and Bitcoin will be 100K and they'll wonder what happened.
yeah, I think a lot of the crypto funds are operating on a Bitcoin basis, so that that they're not operating on a USD basis.
Mm.
I think I see the shitcoins as a way to kind of get data on Bitcoin. Like if I was theoretically like running a Bitcoin hedge fund,
Mm-hmm.
that would be kind of the way I approach it. When Bitcoin is chopping around and pretty much is just sideways for forever, then you can start to rotate some capital into. Uh, Obviously, when you're consolidating in an uptrend, because when we're consolidating a downtrend right now, that's
Yeah.
not really the case.
Yeah.
Um, like when we were consolidating between 50, 60K, and it
Yeah.
was pretty clear we were going to chop for a while, you started to see a lot of that capital rotate into the altcoins. And
Could
so
could you
I just
explain
wondered, go
Could you
ahead.
explain, Will, when you said for these funds to get beta, could you explain what that means for anybody who doesn't know?
Yeah, so I mean, you can just think of it like you're going down the risk curve, right? Bitcoin stalled out, but you think Bitcoin is staying at these levels, so you start to move into some assets that have a little risk on and are more volatile against Bitcoin.
With the goal of snagging more, like essentially taking that trade against Bitcoin to then have that go up in the value against Bitcoin to then come back to have more Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a risk reward thing. So they're saying, okay, I'll go further out, more beta, higher risk, and therefore theoretically higher return for me to get more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But of course, that's only something you want to do in a bull market when Bitcoin's consolidating in an uptrend, because the altcoins have a lot of reflexivity. So you get this effect where they pump really hard in the bull market, but then on the way down, they dump 10 times harder than Bitcoin
Yeah.
because the market caps are so much smaller and they're not as liquid as Bitcoin. So
Yeah, and everyone's running back to get back to the safe zone, or in their mind.
yeah,
So that yeah,
yeah, that's a
exactly.
good way to put it. Yeah, in
Yeah.
the bull market, people run out of the safe zone and
Yeah.
then come back when they see. Yeah, uh, I think that's the main reason I don't hold any of the altcoins, and then also the fact that Bitcoin one day there could just be some big announcement like something that we didn't even think. Like I remember Tesla waking up in the morning at Tesla, I was like, holy shit! I
Yeah.
was so bullish that morning. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the first domino to fall.
Yeah.
And I remember crazy, and I was like running around my house. But it's like nobody could have predicted that was going to come out that morning, and that's
Yeah.
the risk of not owning Bitcoin is waking up one morning and all of a sudden it's up 20% because some random person announced that they're holding it. So
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think if we go off the assumption that you have and I have, and I think a lot of people have, which is that we are sort of past the point of no return, because I think enough, smart money has understands what's going on, and then also just the nature of the protocol that it can't be stopped, right? I mean, how many more events are there going to be like that? What happens when Oracle wants it, puts Bitcoin on their balance sheet? What happens when Russia jumps off the dollar and puts Bitcoin in their, I mean, there's going to be 100 different events like that, like you said. And in some ways, yeah, you have to be okay with that risk, but you are playing with fire if you're holding, 100% of your portfolio in compound or something. And then, that, I mean, obviously it'll bring it up with it to some extent, but maybe not, right? People just don't, the past isn't always indicative of what's going to happen when some of these, world shattering moves happen. So I feel you on that.
yeah, that's why I think for the average person, I would say just to buy and hold Bitcoin. I trade a small portion of my Bitcoin holdings. Not that I think I'm like necessarily like super smart,
Yeah.
and I'm able to time the market all the time because I've been wrong multiple times. But in my opinion, it's just a good way to learn. I've been trying to really grok trading for it's been a good like 3 months. And I think the best way to really learn is just through experience. Like you can watch all these videos and see what other people are doing, but
Yeah.
when you're trading and you have your real money on the line, that's when you get those. I think the majority of trading, I think it's twofold. You need to be patient, like not wanting to take every single trade all the time. You're like,
Mm.
oh, I should be doing something like every second of the day. I should be trading the whole day. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, you should be keeping up with the market all day. And then when you find an opportunity that it lines up on, confluence across multiple things you're looking at, then, you just align probabilities and, that looks like a good trade. It's not going to work out 100% of the time, but I think that's part of it is not always wanting to take a trade. And then also, risk management, not putting all of your money into
Mm.
something and letting your emotions kind of take over where I've been trading sometimes where, granted, I'm not trading a lot of money, so I'm sure like for people that are really trading big money, this is like 10 times harder for them.
Yeah.
But getting wrecked and then being like, oh, I got to make that money back,
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
start angry trading, and then you lose, twice that. So I think,
Well, it's like poker, dude. I mean, you have pocket queens and you're like, I'm set, but it's like clearly you're not going to win that hand 100% of the time. And you get a little overconfident, you lose a hand, and then you start going real aggressive to get back and it doesn't go your way. And yeah, if you go all in and you're wrong, you're at zero, no matter how many gains you've made prior to that. And I think risk management is like the biggest part that I think. I'm not even a big trader myself, really. I'm just mostly just holding, the things I think that are quality, um, but yeah, that seems to be like the part. I think a lot of people when they first like get into the space or they understand, they're like, how does it work? Like, am I buying and selling high and low? And it's like, no, almost none of you should be trading. Like ever, but it's so enticing for people. And I think maybe it's just the world we live in, dude, where you have 10-second videos that are just dopamine hit after dopamine hit, and people feel like you have to be doing something every second of the day. That seems, I think that might be a part of it. What do you think?
yeah, 100%. And like that's why. I mean, I don't think I'm a good trader. Like I'm just learning more and more every day, but I don't think I'm a good trader. But I think it's the best way to kind of master your emotions. Like I've started meditating and stuff because it's like
Mm.
like you said, you get that, you know, instant all the time, go, go, go. So I think, you know, with with trading, it's more mental, like the emotional aspect of it than anything. And if you want to learn not only how markets work, but kind of how to master your emotions, I think trading some capital, you know, in the crypto markets is a good way to do that.
Yeah. When you trade, I mean, if you're holding almost, you know, pretty much everything in Bitcoin, I'm curious, like, how do you actually trade? Like, do you have some stable coins sitting there for when you want to do things? Are you like, are you, you know, are you taking your Bitcoin, selling for stables, and then like using some leverage? Like, how do you actually trade when you do go to trade? I'm curious.
Yeah, so you know, here in the US, we can't get access to leverage. So I can't get on FTX, BitMEX, any of those, Binance. So I just trade on Coinbase Pro, and
Hmm.
just because I'm just trying to learn it. Like I'm not, you know, I'm trading like a few $100s. I'm not, you know, I'm just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
more
Nice.
just for the fact of just trying to figure it out. And then once I get more confident, I'll put more capital in. But for now, it's just like I'm in that learning phase. So I just trade on Coinbase Pro, and I just trade on a USD basis. I'm just buying and selling.
Cool.
But eventually, well, especially if, you know, we can get some leveraged exchanges to the US, I would trade the derivatives. But for now, you know, I'm just trying to figure it out. So I'm just trading on Coinbase Pro. I think that's like a place where a lot of people here in the US just kind of start as like a, you
Yeah.
know, baby steps.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's probably the best like trading platform for the, you know, for Americans right now. Okay, so switching topics. So who, I mean, do you have a theory on who's Satoshi?
um, I think Hal Finney is in my mind the most likely person. Um, and maybe this sounds messed up, but I also think it's because he died that it's even more likely that it's him.
Yeah. Mm,
That either A, he died, or B, he went missing, and this
mm.
uh, who knows where. But I think that gives him a really high likelihood. Obviously, it's not Craig Wright. Um, I
What?
don't think
Hold on.
it.
Are you serious?
I know that's a little shocking. Um, Adam Back is super smart, but I don't think it's him. Nick Szabo, I mean, who knows? Like maybe it's a group of these guys. Like maybe Nick Szabo, Adam Back, and Hal Finney all got together in a room and put this thing together. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Hal Finney's my like kind of one or two on any given day. Have you seen any of the people that have made the argument that Sergey Nazarov is Satoshi?
Yeah, I've seen that. Cause dude, when I
There's some
first got in,
interesting stuff with that. I mean, his age is, you know, he's a little young, but like, it's interesting
yeah, I think he's a really bright guy too. I think he's one of the brightest minds in the whole DeFi space.
for sure.
I like what Chainlink does. I don't own their token because, you know, what we talked about, how I think everything gets repriced in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I think what they're doing is interesting. I think like the Oracle problem is real. Like some of these things, Bitcoiners, I guess they focus on a monetary premium, but some of these projects are actually legit. Like the problems that they're trying to solve
For sure.
are real problems. Like the Oracle problem, if anybody understands smart contracts, is actually a real problem. Granted,
Mhm.
I don't know if maybe something like that could be built on Bitcoin, and that's over my head. I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
really in touch with the technical stuff of how Bitcoin works. You need to ask like Pierre Richard or like Ben Kaufman or something.
Yeah.
But I think, in my humble opinion, like these projects, like they're trying to build real stuff, and Chainlink was one of the ones I remember when I first came into the space, was trying to like sift through all the noise. That was something that kind of stood out to me, where I was like, oh, that's interesting. um, I think, you know, for people that are operating on a USD basis, I always think of their token as kind of like a stock in their company.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't own it.
Yeah, yeah, don't definitely. I mean, I think, you know, it's amongst the super hard Bitcoiners. It's not, you know, they're almost, most of them are almost like, yeah, you could build it on Bitcoin. You could build anything on Bitcoin. I don't know if you can, like, right? I mean, like, there's a lot of things that are happening, right? There's some cool DeFi stuff, happening on Bitcoin with like Sovereign. I think Pomp mentioned that's a company invested in, and there's a couple other ones. There's, I think, like, was it Stacks, the one that's doing the City coin? They're doing some cool stuff. But I'm under the impression I think there's going to be at least one, or if you take history, at least two, probably like pretty dominant smart contract based app platforms. Maybe you could do all that on a layer 2 for Bitcoin, but it's not Bitcoin at that point, right? And like, I don't know, human nature just feels like it's such a component in this, right? And the ability to create a monetary unit, is such a big incentive for people, and such a big incentive for the smartest minds in the world, that, it's like maybe, there's going to be some people who pull that off. And, I'm under the impression, I think blockchain is going to do more for the world than, I don't mean to like minimize it, but just Bitcoin, right? I mean, obviously Bitcoin's going to be, the biggest thing ever, but I think so many of these things we're using now are going to be rewritten and cutting out all the waste into smart contracts. Even just what you can do with lending and borrowing now in DeFi without any middleman, and then providing liquidity and becoming the exchange is super, super sexy, right? And that stuff I don't think is going back in the bottle. What do you think?
Yeah, I think with the peer-to-peer lending, I think there's some interesting stuff going on with like HODL, and I think there's more platforms coming up, but I think HODL is like the main one that's doing peer-to-peer. So I think Bitcoin in that regard, like the borrowing lending market, I think that honestly gravitates towards Bitcoin, because you'll start to see more of these platforms where you're holding a key, the other person holds a key, and then the exchange holds a key. So I think that's kind of gravitating towards that, at least for people that are borrowing money BTC. But aside from that, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about one other thing, subject change. So now, especially in this video, and then a couple of the videos you've done, I always see in the background, you got some sports stuff. You got like the KD jersey, Muhammad Ali. Are you a big sports guy or what?
Not too much. I used to really be into basketball. I played basketball for like, I don't know, 6 years or something like that, 5, 6 years. So
Okay.
I always loved. Most of my family's from New York, so I'm not a bandwagon Nets fan. I got this thing like a year ago, by the way. I think I actually
You got
got
it
it.
when KD still had the injury.
Yeah, no, I did, like that ass. I did. I got it. I think it was Halloween for Halloween last year, and I just needed a jersey, and I was like, I'm just gonna get a Brooklyn one because the thing's fresh. So
Yeah.
I just got it, and then it turned out they were good this year. So I'm not bandwagon. And then that I don't know. I just thought it was cool.
Legend. You just
I
gotta
like
get it.
boxing. Yeah, gotta get
Are
it.
you gonna are
And
you gonna watch Floyd and Logan Paul?
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Dude,
maybe I'll get it off like my friends. Um, I think my buddy is paying for it, because I'm not putting money in those guys' pockets. So maybe
no,
I'll try to
no.
get him. But if not, I'll just if anything interesting happens, it'll be on the internet. So just throw it
Exactly,
out.
dude.
I'm
But
not gonna give Logan Paul $100 or whatever.
yeah, so you can keep it in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I mean, what a spectacle, but it's gonna be fun to watch nonetheless, dude. I mean, I think insane that like the betting odds aren't even crazier than they are, right? I think Logan's like 8-1. Also, I don't get how the betting odds are going to work, because there's no judges, and there's no like winner called. So the only way I feel like there's probably going to be winners if there's a KO, I would assume, but I don't. It's very weird because it's like exhibition rules.
Is it? This is my question. So if i- is there a round limit, and if they hit the limit, is it just a draw, and then
It's
does
eight
that?
rounds, eight three
Okay.
minute 3 minute rounds, 8 rounds. No judges. They said no winners decided. But again, like in Vegas, you bet. There's odds for Logan. There's odds for Floyd. So my question is like, if there's no knockout, does Vegas just
You
pay
just
everyone's money
draw.
back? Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't get that, but I wonder, if will this really be on like, can we really call him 51-0 after this fight? Like, I don't think so. I
No,
don't
no,
think
no.
it goes on his real record. Like, I don't think this counts.
No, I don't think it's gonna count. Well, but I mean, if he loses,
If he
you
loses,
bet
people
your
will
ass
count
everyone's gonna call you
it.
50-1,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Dude, if Logan wins, guaranteed the earth stops spinning. we all just get sucked back into a black hole, and then we start, and then the Big Bang happens again for sure. This guy
Yeah,
wins.
I think it would be a big hit to the sport of boxing. That's all I really have to say about that.
Oh,
I
100%.
always try to hold it down, man. If boxing wants to have any integrity after this.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Well, dude, so dude, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it. So what are you working on now? I think you mentioned that you're working with Pomp on the newsletters. I think you said that, right? And what else are you working on that people can follow up with you? And I mean, obviously, you guys got to follow William on Twitter. Anybody watching this, but
Thanks for the plug.
yeah, for sure.
I started doing this stuff with Pomp like two months ago, month and a half ago, where I put out 2 newsletters a week. One goes out on like his Substack channel. The other one goes out on mine. The Friday one that goes out on his is kind of like a weekly update. And then eventually when we get more subs, then we'll kind of rotate it over back fully to mine. And then Saturday we do like a weekly review basically of the on-chain metrics and kind of like what's changing throughout the week. Excuse me. And then, in my free time, I'm just staring at charts all day and just doing some independent research. I'm putting together right now a top model, pricing model for Bitcoin to capture the tops, kind of inspired by work by David Puel, who's another, he was kind of like one of the pioneers in the on-chain space. So I got his blessing to work with some of the metrics he put together, and I'm trying to create this pricing model. So that'll be coming out soon. Just other stuff like that. I'm trying to throw different ratios together and see if I can find any new like on-chain stuff that people can use. But for the most part, I'm just pumping stuff out on Twitter. Whenever I see anything interesting, I just share it. And then I do these Twitter spaces as well. Like I started doing them maybe a month ago after Bitcoin tanked. I think it's been kind of a coping mechanism for the Bitcoin community. I think if we started going back up, it'll be interesting. It won't be coping anymore. It'll more be like people just like super enthusiastically like saying how bullish they are. Like I'll be interested to see how the rooms transition in like a month or two when people are like, this thing's going to the moon right now. Like this is hyper Bitcoinization. Like the whole vibe in the room is going to completely change.
Everyone's got an El
But
Salvador tattoo.
yeah. I think for now it's just kind of the cope room. So if you want to come cope with us, hop in my Bitcoin space. It's been cool. We have some interesting people up here like Preston Pish and Greg Foss up one day. We have Cred, who's one of like the big technical guys. I'm actually putting out a newsletter with him this week, so look out for that. It's kind of like a combination of technical analysis and on chain. But he came up in the space one day. That was cool. We had Tim Dillon in there.
Yeah, dude, he's great.
And yeah, he's a really funny guy. And we also just have like random people that come up and, you'd be surprised how many anonymous people from like Legacy Finance are on Twitter that have like 15, 20 followers. Like Mind Over Matter, he's always on there. He's this guy from traditional finance. He came on my spaces like a month and a half ago. If anybody's listening, follow him because he's a really smart dude. But he just came up and I was like, this guy, he's got like this avatar he's smoking, I think he's like smoking a blunt with like beanie on his head, the laser eyes. And then this guy starts talking. I'm like, holy shit. Like this guy's really smart. And like, this guy is actually in traditional finance, and he's just sitting on Twitter.
What's his Twitter handle? Mind
Over Matter. It's like Mind-Matter.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, but he's been like super insightful. We got him up from like 50, 100 followers. Now he's up to like 13, 1400. So shout out to him. But we've had, my point is just, we've had a lot of random kind of like hidden gems on there where the way I kind of operate the room is anybody can come up. Like, I don't care if, you have a certain amount of followers or whatever, like anybody can raise their hand. I'll bring you up. As long as you're not like yelling or like interrupting people and being obnoxious, then I'm going to have to send you down.
Yep.
I like to bring people up because you never know who's going to be super insightful. I don't know if you were in the room the other day. We had this guy Pi.
No, but I heard you reference it last night. I think he was another guy that was just
brilliant, he was just
huh?
he was explaining like the whole options market, and I didn't know what he was saying. I think I wrapped my head around probably a tenth of what he said that night. But there's a lot of people on Twitter that I think the big whales don't have the big followings. So I think
Mm.
it's important to kind of hear everybody out, because you'd be surprised. I found that a lot of times the people with like less than 500 followers have way more insightful things to say than the people over 10,000. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What's the cadence in which you're gonna do the spaces? How often and what time? Or is it set or
I just do them whenever. I might actually do one this afternoon, but I just do them whenever. You
okay.
get a notification and I'll tweet it out. I usually do them like every other night, something like that. Sometimes we'll go on a spree where we're doing like, one every day for a couple days. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just kind of do them whenever. I'll just, I have my buddy shoot me a text like, hey, you want to do spaces? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Try to get some interesting people on there, but for the most part, I mean, yeah, just anybody come up and we just talk all things Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what you want to talk about. If you have a
Yeah.
question or you just want to bring something up, you just want to hear yourself talk, just come on up.
No, and I think what you mentioned, I forget the phrasing you said is like a coping group or something like that early on. I know for me, like, I mean, I'm not sitting here like Bitcoin, it's 35 and I'm like, oh my God, freaking out. But it's nice when, everything you look around is negativity and you're in there with a lot of people who really get what's going on. And so just, I think, yeah, anybody curious, like it's just a super cool space for that. And I've already, met people like you and a lot of other super cool people in there. So I couldn't recommend it enough for people. One last question, Will, I wanted to ask you, man. Always fun to do. What do you have an end of the year price prediction? That not the name is going to hold you to it, but what do you think, if you can?
What about end of cycle?
Well, okay. Well, then I have two questions. Is when do you think the cycle may end, and what's end of cycle prediction?
No clue about the first question. I would say late 2021 to early 2022. And to the second question, I would say 250 to 300K.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. I think we're just kind of in this. Sorry if you can hear the lawnmower in the back. We're
No, you're
kind of
good.
this midway consolidation, where we're kind of just building up this basic capital. All the weak hands, everything I'm seeing on chain, it's basically just weak hands that have been getting flushed out, while the longer term holders have been scooping up coins. This process has been going on for like 2 months now.
Mm-hmm.
So for now, you just sit and wait and let that, kind of accumulation process take place. But I still think we have a long way to go. We didn't reach overheated on anything that I'm looking at. So I think people who there's a lot of the technical guys calling for like sub 20K. I think they're out of their mind. I
Yeah,
think
dude,
the
I
lowest we
agree.
possibly go is 20K. Like if we break right now like 32, 30K, I think we're going lower, but I don't think we're going any lower. Like the absolute bare floor is 20K. If we went below 20K, I honestly would be concerned, because it would be unlike any price structure you've ever seen in any bull market, that we went right back under the previous all-time high. So that would be concerning, to be honest, but I don't think we go that low. I think
Do you think there's a chance I mean, I don't want to say the powers that be as if it's three people who control the market, but there's obviously, some very, very big players who, are trying to shake people off the stick and do that. Do you think there's any chance that, those that be, if they can drive things a bit lower, may look at some of those like major psychological levels and go, let's wick it to 19 and just see everyone freak so everyone gets off.
Yeah, but I think you also have so many buy orders around
Yeah.
20K that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I can go in and look at all the buy orders and sell orders that are set, and
Hmm.
I mean there's so many around 20K, and I mean the whole way through from 30K to 20K, you're going to have someone with like hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of capital to keep consistently selling if they want to drive the price down. Um,
They'll
so
probably just run out of Bitcoin to sell.
yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
through it all.
I mean that's honestly that's what happens is in an accumulation process. It's basically just the sellers keep selling, and the buyers are obviously keep buying until the point that the sellers run out of the asset to sell. Like as simple as that sounds, that's what it really
Yeah.
is. Like we're in this process where the weak hands keep selling, and the strong hands keep buying, keep buying. Eventually, what's going to happen is the weak hands are going to run out of coins to sell, and then we go up, and that's what, when people talk about seller exhaustion, that's what that is. It's we chop and chop and chop until all the weak hands get shaken out. Those coins move to hands that aren't going to sell. And then when we go back up, like, dude, if we break all-time high, like, it's a wrap. Like, we're going to six figures, easy money. Like, it's a wrap, dude.
Okay.
Because right now, what I'm seeing, like, this whole weak hand to strong hand kind of distribution. When we get up there's not going to be as many people that are holding coins that don't have strong conviction. The people buying down here are super long-term bullish on the asset. So, the people that just speculatively got in and we're trying to, like, ride the wave up, those aren't the people buying down here. So when we get back up, you'll have this stronger, almost like foundation for price to grow off of. And so I think, if we break all-time highs again, it's a wrap, dude.
Love that. Bullish. Dude, 250 to 300K. You guys heard it here first. Dude, that's exciting, man. Okay. Well then, dude, I can't thank you enough for your time, dude. This has been super insightful, I know, for me, and I hope for people listening. Just to reemphasize, the spaces that you'll throw up, I think, are a super great spot people have to check out. Obviously, follow William on Twitter. I'm going to put everything below so people can find all that. And dude, I'd love to have you on again, man. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. When we get off, I'll send you my Telegram on Twitter. So that way, to be honest, like, not to sound airheaded, but my DMs have, like, been blown up since, like, I've got all the following over the last month or two.
Dude,
so
I'm sure it's hard to do with near 100K. You're just getting, you're getting, sir, will you buy this moon coin? You're getting probably some chicks. You're getting fucking interviews. You're getting everything.
It's been funny. All the shitcoin, like, that's half of the DMs. It's just, hey, wanted to reach out to you about this project. And I'm like, dude,
we're a generation 5 blockchain. You haven't heard of what we're doing.
It's some bullshit like that. It's pretty bad, but yeah, just hit me up on Telegram. I'll send it to you after we get off, and that way, I'd love to come back on again. Enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was really fun, and I like you, dude. I like when you come up on Spaces. You always have some good stuff to say. So
thanks, dude.
Thanks a lot for having me on, man. And yeah, for sure, we'll have to do this again.
Of course, yeah. Thank you, William. Appreciate it, man. Bye.
Yeah.